Hi guys, welcome back to the session. My name is Somjit Goswami. So we are doing a reading comprehension passage analysis. There is a WhatsApp number right in front of your screen. This is designed for a specific purpose, and that purpose is that I'm starting a live batch for the VARC section for the CAT 2023, of course, and the details will be available in the WhatsApp group. So if you want to contact, probably this is the number wherein you can contact me. Now let's delve into the passage. Let's try and understand where the what initial impressions and everything is towards this passage. Having said everything, I would like to just include one more thing. That is, if you haven't taken this test, if you haven't understood this, there's a PDF that is there in the Telegram community. You can just join in the Telegram community and you can read the PDF from there. The questions are there, everything is there, so you can attempt it. So now let's delve into this. So let's read the first line of the first paragraph. And what does it say? Bees' incredible ability to transform nectar into honey has long made them humanity's friend. Okay, so we're talking something related to the bees, but hives also rely on honey to survive long after summer blooms have faded. Okay, so basically, the first line of the first para tells me that we are discussing something related to the bees in general, or maybe beehives. Okay, so let's read ahead to get the picture clear. If flowers have died off but winter cold doesn't set in, bees may fruitlessly keep foraging, becoming nutritionally stressed. Okay, so this, I think it is going somewhere without making too many assumptions. Let's read ahead. If they use too many resources in the fall or emerge before flowers are available to feed on in the spring, there's phenology mismatches, a gap in the timing between bees and the flowers they depend on. Now, you see, the first paragraph itself is too much, language heavy. You would realize that effectively because this passage is very factual in nature. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Generally, what I have realized is that these type of passages are not very difficult in terms of the questions, but they are actually a little difficult on reading uh, as such. What happens is that it slowers down your reading pace, and generally that happens because we try to understand everything that is written over there. Okay, so you don't really need to understand what is phenology mismatch and everything. You just need to read it, try and understand the argument of that para. So first para basically talks about the human bee interlinkage, and it also talks about the dependency of the hive, which is basically the place in which the bees live. आप कह सकते हो घर of the bees, that also depends on honey. So that is one sort of an idea, if you can cling on to, that will help you with the main idea eventually. Okay, let's read ahead. In the summer, honeybee workers honeybee workers transition through different states as they age, working as a nurse bee when they are young and foraging when they grow older. Winter bees, conversely, are physiologically different. They can survive for months. Okay, winter bees are physiologically different. What do we mean by physiologically different? So they're made very different. Basically, their entire physical sense is different. Okay, शारीरिक तौर पे, a little Hindi over there, and they can survive for months. But if the colony is actively searching for nectar in the fall, they aren't producing winter bees, meaning they aren't prepared to survive in the winter. What is the main idea? Forget about the main idea. What is the argument in this para? The argument is that we are talking about summer bees, how their transition works. We are also talking about winter bees, how they work, how physiologically they're different. And they're also talking about how the surviving mechanism is in the place. Let's read ahead. When spring comes, the older bees die at rates that exceed the replacement rates. Okay, 30 years ago, if you would lose 10% of your colonies, that would be a bad year for you. That's in part because, like, human bees are more likely to get sick when they're mentally. You'll realize that this is all nonsensical lines written over there. Longer, I'll explain why I'm saying this is all nonsensical. That's in part because they die. That is the important thing, that older bees die at a rate. So basically, if you want to ask what is the argument, when spring comes, the older bees die at a rate that exceeds the replacement rate. So this is the argument, that's it. And why they die, we don't really need to understand that. Longer autumns and warmer winters are also extending bees flying time, helping spread varroa mites and their diseases, causing surgery number. This is too factual. Basically, if there is a factual question that if the RC will ask you, we can just come back and we can answer. So there's nothing in there. So the argument is dead. These climates important. Now you see there's a transition of thoughts. These climate impacts are likely exaggerated by land use changes, which reduce bees' ability to adapt to new challenges. The increased use of herbicide insecticide has reduced the diversity of plant bees used to depend on, while increasing their toxic load. Neonicotinoids, a class of insecticides that affect the bee's central nervous system, are particularly harmful. So this is also talking about the climate change and how insecticides are in a way or the other, affecting the bees in general. Okay. Is there a strong argument in there? I don't think so. So we'll read ahead. This is how you read. You do not wait and try and understand, oh, what is neonicotinoids and all that nonsense. Okay, just read, and specifically read really fast if you can. Honeybees evolved to survive winter by huddling into a thermoregulated cluster. Now, this is an argument. Honeybees are evolved to survive winters by huddling, surrounding their queen. So they basically surround their queens in a thermoregulated clusters. When do they do that? They do that in winters as a survival mechanism. When anther stops releasing pollen and petals begin to shrivel, worker bees drag the male drones out of the hive into crisp fall air, a sacrifice completed by chewing off their wings. That's a very interesting line. The test of the hive's endurance has begun. The bees hurdle, expand, and contracts. It is a dying time. So basically, you will realize that the argument basically talks about the survival mechanism or the death mechanism, whichever you would like to pick, the survival mechanism of the honeybees in the winters. Okay, this is what is written over there. Is there any main idea? I don't think so. The main idea or the argument you can say is that honeybees evolved to survive. The survival is the argument that is given in this passage. Now we will read these two together. To help slow these crippling winter losses, beekeepers are increasingly turning to cold storage. Okay, so bee now we are suddenly from bees to we are transitioning the thought. Survival mechanism, death mechanism, all of that is an idea. The next idea that is presented is that to help slow these crippling winter losses, beekeepers, now suddenly there are beekeepers, now humans are into the picture, increasingly using the cold storage. When honeybees are kept artificially cold, they don't need forage. Forage basically means going out and looking for food to be treated for mites, the same thing, or fed by or be fed by their keeper, cutting down on the cost and reducing mortality. So basically, they're in a way or the other helping the bees. Cold storage isn't a catch-all solution. So this is not a foolproof method. Like so much in modern agriculture, there's also a question of scale. The cost and risk of these facilities work best for large-scale operation who can afford to lose several hundred hives if something goes wrong. Basically, it's talking about, so one, the cold storage, so you can possibly call this the pro, and you can call this point the con. So this is, you can maybe in your head you can say the pro and con of the cold storage thing. The last para, let's try and understand this. Basically should conclude the entire passage. Wild bees, meanwhile, have fewer ways to adapt. The decline of wild bees will affect the entire ecosystem, says Ellen Moss, a research associate in the Newcastle University. Rising temperature are increasingly disrupting the plant bees rely on, leading to food shortage, blah, blah, blah. Moss recently conducted a study that simulated an increase of 1.5 Celsius and a 40% in rainwater over the growing season. She found the floral abundance, and whatever she did is not none of our concern. What is our concern is that 1.5 degrees Celsius she increased, and that she found out that the floral abundance was reduced by almost half. Floral abundance basically means the flowers or the you can say the flower bearing mechanism of the plants, causing the hard working pollinators to visit more frequently. Who are we talking about in the hardworking pollinator thing? Hardworking pollinator basically are these bees itself. To visit each flower more frequently to collect the same amount of pollen nectar while the wildflower themselves produce fewer seeds. So this is an interesting thing. So this is again talking about an experiment that Ellen Moss did. All in all, if you look at this passage, you will realize that this is a very, the kind of a passage that I generally hate, although these passages are very good in terms of giving you marks. Okay, so that's there. Which of the following is the main idea of the first paragraph? Before looking into this questions, you should ideally go to the first para, read it quickly, and then form a shadow answer. So we will do that. We'll try do that. And I have already, underlined, and I have, segregated them into the parentheses, so we don't really have to do much work. Bees' incredible ability to transform nectar into honey have made them humanity's friend, blah blah blah. And then it said that hives rely on the honey when the summer blooms have faded, if flowers have died, blah blah blah. And then it says that they become nutritionally this thing if they. Okay, so basically, we are talking about if summer, if winters are delayed, then there is some sort of a problem that the bees can encounter. Okay, so that is mota mota, that's the shadow answer. That is mota mota the argument also. So what are we looking at? We are looking at the main idea of the first paragraph. Okay, so let me do one thing. Let me change the color of the pen. Yeah. So the ability of the bees to transform nectar into honey is incredible. Is this the main idea of the first paragraph? I mean, this is a process, but this is not the main idea. This is not the argument that is given. Bees' foraging habits are not always synchronized with climatic changes. I'll keep this. Variation in climates creates stressful habits for honey bee population. I will keep this also. Climate warning causes phenology mismatches in the ecosystem. Okay, so climate warming, sorry, not warning, sorry, my mistake. Climate warming causes phenology mismatch. We are nowhere, talking about the warming or, global warming as such. So it goes out. Now between B and C, if you are somebody who is confused between B and C, congratulations, you're a good student. Okay. Bees foraging habits are not always synchronized with the climate change. Now you would have to be very careful to answer this question. The first one is talking about a habit of a bee, and the second one is saying the variation in climate creates a stressful habitat for the honeybee population. So if you just go back and see this thing, the passage, you will get the answer. What you will realize is that it is written over there. If flowers have died, but winter does not set in, bees may fruitlessly keep foraging. So it is not the habit of the bees to maybe, forage or, not able to adapt. It is because of the reason that winter has not set in. I hope that makes sense. So can we answer? So it is basically the variation in the climate that creates a stressful habitat for the honeybee population, and not the bees foraging habits are not always synchronized with the climate change. So a more apt answer would be option number 3. Question number 2. Which, according to the passage, a winter bee is important to the colony because now we will be very much, we will be very much able to answer this question if we directly go to the para in which there is something written about the winter bee. So let's go there. Okay, I think this is where yeah. Winter bees, so this is where it is. Winter bee conversely are physiologically different and can survive for months. But again, they're written, it's written that if the colony is actively searching for nectar into the fall, then they aren't producing winter bees, meaning they aren't as prepared to survive in the winter. So basically, the winter bees are important for the colony, the beehives, but the problem because of the winters getting delayed is that the colony is actively searching. Winter bees are not created. Basically, giving you into a chain reaction in which the winter bees are themselves not created. So we'll go and try to find that. So that is my shadow answer. Worker bee. Okay, so winter bee is important to the colony because we'll always read the question. Worker bees cannot survive in the winter cold. Nothing related to worker bees goes out. Winter bees are built to survive during the time blooms are unavailable. I'll keep this. Winter bees are essential to protect the queen bee. Is it? No. Worker bees and male drones kill each other and their other before the winter sun. No. So with that in this picture, two becomes my answer. I hope you realized what I did. Nothing related to worker bees and male drones is there, so out of scope. Winter bees are essential to protect the queen bee, not given in the second or whatever in the para which we went to scavenge for the answer, the shadow answer. Let's go to the third one. Beekeepers are turning to cold storage for all of the following except, please pay attention to this word. We are looking for all the answers. So basically all the options are right, but there's one wrong answer. Basically we are looking for all the right answers and one wrong answer. So let's read the options, or you can also go to the cold storage unit and you can read it. So let's do that also. Cold storage, anything and everything related to the cold storage is there only. To help slow these crippling winter losses, beekeepers are increasingly turning to cold storage. When the honeybees are kept artificially cold, they don't need to forage, be treated for mite or fed by the keepers, cutting down the cost to reducing mortality. So basically, these are the pros. What are the cons? Cold storage isn't a catch-all solution like so much in agri. There's also a question of scale. There is a question of scale, so you should be very careful. The cost and risk of these facility work best for large scale operation who can afford to lose several hundred hives if something goes wrong. So okay, mota mota we understand. Let's let's answer the question. To keep bees from dying because of foraging in winter, okay, to protect the from mites associated and the associated disease, to protect the bees from mites and associated diseases could be one of the reason why cold storage is there. So not my answer. To lower the cost of feeding the bees, that is also given that we don't really need to feed them if they are in the cold storage, so they will not move out of this thing. To prevent diminishing number to prevent diminishing bee numbers in their thermoregulated cluster. This is not at all given. So this has to be all of the following are the reason that for that beekeepers are turning to cold storage, except so we are trying to find out the reason for which they are not turning to the cold storage is because of this one, to prevent diminishing. So basically all of these, option number 1, 2, 3, these are correct. So I will eliminate them. Let's go to the last one. It can be inferred from the last paragraph of the passage that, okay, so we have to go to the last para. Ideally, I don't need to, but just for the sake of it, I'm going. Wild bees, meanwhile, have fewer ways to adapt. So basically, in a way, we're comparing this thing. The decline of wild bees will affect the entire ecosystem, says Ellen Moss, a research associate at the Newcastle University. Rising temperature, blah, 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 blah. So she basically said that wild bees have fewer ways to adapt. That's one idea. The other idea is how she is demonstrating that through an experiment. And what that experiment is that she simulated an environment in which the temperature of 1.5 degrees Celsius was increased, and she found that floral abundance was reduced, and the working pollinator, basically the bees, to visit each flower more frequently, to basically to collect the same amount of nectar, they had to do a lot of work. And at the same time, the wild flowers were also not producing as much seed. In other words, they were producing fewer seeds. So mota mota shadow answer is ready. Let's read the options. What are we looking? Again, I'm asking the question. We are looking for something that can be inferred from the last paragraph of the passage. Wild bees are less efficient when it comes to adaptation. I'm keeping it. Temperature rises have a cascading effect on the ecosystem. This is one of the results of the experiment which she did. 1.5 degrees Celsius increase, the flowers did not made enough, flowering this thing mechanism. Shortage of rain helps the wild bees thrive. I mean, no, not out of scope. Bees do not normally visit the same flower multiple times. This is also not true. So goes out. Wild bees are less efficient when it comes to adaptation. Is it true? They were going to the same, flower which was not bearing the same type of. Basically, this was not bearing enough honey or enough nectar, as to say. yet they were going there again and again. So they are less efficient is definitely not something that can be inferred. In other words, what can be inferred is that temperature rises have a cascading effect on the ecosystem. So this is the answer. So the video solution that I promise that I will upload, this is it. Thank you. Okay, so about the VRC live batch, if you are willing to join us for the live batch, you can contact us in the WhatsApp group, and please be assured that the VRC course will be good. Also, one of the main reasons that I am not launching a quants and a DILR course is that I have decided that I will launch the quants and DILR batch towards the end of May or June. I'll start it from June. There is some sort of a working that needs to be done before I publish the DILR course and the quants course. So that is then. Thank you, guys.